listeners, and welcome to Get Smarter, an LC podcast. On this podcast, we bring together leaders and experts in the area of industrial asset management, digital manufacturing, and reliability to share best practices, share their knowledge, and give you listeners something that you can go back to your work and put in place to change your environment. Speaking of change, today's episode is going to be about thriving through transformational change and engaging teams. In this episode, you're going to get insight into how having a smart culture that's resilient to change can power your continuous improvement programs. I'm really excited to have our guest today. Our guest today is Wade Watson. He is the Executive Director of Operational Excellence for LCE. He has over 30 years of experience leading strategic planning and operations for diverse industries, including the marine, automotive, HVAC, and industrial automation. He's an expert in global quality processes and leading manufacturing efficiencies. In addition, he is a Marine Corps veteran. So thank you for your service, Wade, and thank you for joining us on the Get Smarter podcast.
All right. Thanks, Tara. Glad to be here.
So as I said, today we're going to, Wade, you and I are going to explore what it is about culture that advance or impedes successful projects and some strategic practices that an organization could adopt, like workforce readiness, for example, to be more resilient to changes and to execute on change initiatives for success. So I'm going to jump right in because, Wade, you and I have talked about this, and actually we featured it on other episodes in the podcast about how continuous improvement makes life better. It can be hard, but it makes life better. And so I'd like to put the question to you, what does it take for a leader to create a smart culture of continuous improvement?
Well, I mean, it's a pretty deep question, but
It's
I think
a big question.
it's a big question. It really starts with, I believe, the leadership team setting the direction for an organization and setting a vision of the future that includes everybody that's part of that organization. And when you spell that vision out, there has to be different elements of it. There's the subjective part where what's it going to feel like to be in that future state. There's the objective part. What are the measurements going to be? What is the potential revenue, the capacity, the improvements? And then there's the most important part, which is what's in it for me. And if you think about change and people, you hear about reference to people don't like to change. The fact is, people love to change. If you think about it like this, I'm going to get a new haircut. I'm going to buy a new car. I'm going to move. I'm going to retire. Those are all big life changes, but they come from within. So there's no resistance to it. It was my idea. I know it's good for me. I want to do it. But if I say to you, Tara, you should get your haircut. You should buy a new car.
Excuse me.
You should retire. It sounds totally different. Now, those are very positive life experiences, but being told by somebody else, it becomes negative. So as an organization wants to achieve a desired future state, it's critical to make sure that the employees and the parts of the organization, every part, sees the change as positive for themselves, and then they have to buy into it on their own.
Right. And I think that could be something that leaders struggle with because organizational change might have this perception of being like what people call a soft issue, there's no way that you can quantify it. How can I help somebody see that this is going to be a good change for them? And how would you coach, leaders of an organization that are facing this and facing that, making the change an individual decision to buy in, to join in? Oh yeah, this is good for me. What would you suggest that a leader do to plan those communications and to start out on the right foot of, there will always be resistance, but of starting off by lowering the resistance or helping make it easier for people to get on the continuous improvement bandwagon?
Yeah, it's a good question. So to start with, culture is sometimes perceived as a soft or an intangible thing of an organization. And I've been around leaders in the past. Culture doesn't live in the walls; it lives in people.
Mm-hmm.
And so to get to start how to successfully get an organization into a desired state of culture, this is not so gooey or soft, but a structured organizational change management plan is crucial.
Ah,
So
okay.
to get identify the risks, identify the players, who's going to be an early adopter, who's going to be a resistor, what is the potential fallback if something goes wrong, what is it going to be?
Oh,
If
yeah.
I know that this group of employees really enjoys working overtime, and part of the improvement that we're going to make is going to reduce the amount of overtime in the organization, you have to address that head on and start working with those employees about work-life balance, maybe financial planning. All those elements would go into a change management plan so that you can avoid that pitfall that if you sit down and document, you're going to figure out there's a big risk over there with those employees. So, and part of that planning, it's not only identifying the what's in it for me for the whole entire of the organization, but it's also what are the current dissatisfiers? What are the pain points?
Ah,
Usually,
okay.
if there's a change that you want to implement, and an organization is in a current non-desired position, and you want to get to something different, usually there's some degree of frustration. There's probably some dissenters. There's people that are not on board. So you have to find out what those pain points are and tap into those and say, look, as part of this change, not only are we going to address the dissatisfiers that are currently making this maybe not the best place to work for you or the best part of the organization, but we're also going to improve things like
Right.
give you more time with your family. You can take a vacation without worrying about how bad this place, how things are going wrong. So looking for those benefits for the employees and making sure those are clearly communicated.
Absolutely. I mean, with change comes, anxiety and stress. And so you're saying, take those things that are already or uncover the current pain points and then think about or discover the reverse of that. That could be the benefits that bring to the employee. Okay, yeah, we're going into some uncharted territory here. But this isn't about taking things away. This is about improving things, maybe giving you more opportunities at work and outside of work. Exactly what you said, but being that type of leader that can also identify maybe there are some needs, for those folks going through the change. Maybe there are some educational needs, maybe, some upskilling or reskilling at work, but maybe, as you suggested, financial planning support, because that there are going to be growth potentials, but that won't be immediate, additional every paycheck, but the organization needs this change for this. So it's like talking about it at two levels too. What's going to happen at the big level of the company? What's going to happen for you? And how am I going to get you through that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you
That's,
brought an interesting point about the upskilling, and I've been
yeah.
through introducing automation into processes is a scary thing for employees, but it's usually good for an organization. And
Right.
we can, as a and especially in the U.S. being a higher cost country for labor, and in some cases utilities, automation and process efficiency is really a must. And when you start to bring up strategies that would potentially replace manual jobs or labor burden jobs with a robot or some fixed automation, employees start to get really afraid. Fear drives all kinds of negative behaviors into an organization. So it's important that, and like I said, I've been through a number of transformations that included heavy automation investments, that you have to highlight the opportunity, just like you were saying about upskilling,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that the employees have an avenue to actually obtain it and be clear about it. So if you need automation technicians, industrial engineers, manufacturing engineers, maintenance engineers, schedulers, planners, all these positions that automation drives, and you have a workforce that's heavy in direct labor, assembly positions or
Mm-hmm.
operators, be clear with those employees and say, look, these are career moves that can benefit you, can benefit your family, and here's how the company is going to help you achieve those goals. We can do tuition reimbursement, we can do certification training, we can engage in external support to get that growth for you.
That's right. They're investing in the workforce development, investing in the individual's skill and growth to make a difference in the company. So, that's huge. And you can't do that on the fly, right? I mean, this has got to be part of a major plan ahead of time. You can't make up those answers on the fly. This has to be
Uh,
something that the leaders do before, right?
and no,
And
yeah, and no heavy automation is ever going to hit the ground in a week. It's these strategies, these investments take 1 year, 2 year, 5 years. So when you're going through a change, this is where that structured change management plan is so
yep.
critical. Define that future state, put a plan together so that by the time your physical change or your process change hits, your people side is ready to take advantage and jump on board. The other benefit, of course, is the relationship and the loyalty that's developed with employees that grow from within is so much deeper than hiring somebody that brings those skills in from outside. If as an employee I can say I've worked for this company for 20 years, I started as an assembler, they paid for my education, I then became an industrial engineer, and I'm now the manager and I'm ready to retire 30 years later. That story is a beautiful story, and it drives that that loyalty and that bond between the company and the employee, because there's that already the synergies and the codependence.
So I think that's an excellent point. So let's use that employee loyalty as a segue to what elements, and I'm not sure the element is the right word, but what things like employee loyalty or employee engagement, or what elements like that should the leadership try to put into place to cultivate that, we call it life cycle engineering, that smart culture that's going to be those success stories, that's going to have the resilience to change? What do you think are some key building blocks that that should be put in place to cultivate that kind of a work environment?
So I think trust is the first one. There has to be an open relationship between employees and leadership and management, up and down and sideways. Trust can be built. It can be measured. There's ways that organizations can put training and development and even measure the trustworthiness of leadership, management, and employees by looking at transparency, credibility,
Mm,
relatability, and reliability. And so trust is a key element to get a workforce engaged. The other one is, there has to be clear lines of structured communication continually.
mm,
And employees have to know, what are my goals and objectives? How can I be a contributor to this organization? And then, of course, that, all important, what's in it for me? And as a high contributor, I have the potential for growth, uh, sustainability, stability, and those kind of things. I think engagement is the key word here. I
yeah.
was involved in organizations that used to chase satisfaction, and the fact is, you can have a very satisfied workforce and a very inefficient operation. It's difficult to have a very engaged workforce and an inefficient operation. Engagement and
Wow,
satisfaction
that's
are two different things.
no, that says volume. Engagement and satisfaction are two different things, because you could be like you said, satisfied with a low performance, but hey, I'm doing what I always did, I
Yep.
come to work, I do it, I go home.
Yep.
Um, yeah, no, and then to be that driver for the transformative change that brings on new levels of performance. Um, No, I think that's an excellent insight about the difference between engagement and satisfaction. So you talked about a couple of performance indicators of trust. You talked about reliability, transparency. Are there other performance indicators that you can watch during a transformational change or measure during a transformational change so that it moves the change out of this intangible area into like, no, this is how we know that people are engaged, or this is how we know that people are have bought into the change?
Yeah. So yeah, a couple I'd say the most visible is ideas per employee.
Oh, okay.
And depending on the maturity of the organization and how they work with continuous improvement, it could be implemented or it could just be generated. The first thing that you want to tap into is getting employees to feel confident enough and trust the organization enough to say, I have an idea. I think that we could do something better. And if the second step is very important, because if you set up the measurement and the expectation that employees need to make improvements to process and improvements to the organization, and then management doesn't react and doesn't give an answer, even if the answer is no, the ideas will stop and the trust will be broken. So it's
Sure.
critical that if there's an expectation that says, okay, we want everybody to improve one thing a month or one thing a year, submit your ideas. We're going to recognize you. We're going to reward you. It's critical that there has to be an answer. Yes, we're going to implement that idea, or no, we can't, and here's why.
Absolutely. And that then it's like everybody in the organization is involved in continuous improvement. It's an idea generation machine at that point,
Yeah,
if you do it right,
if you do it
and
right.
if leadership is engaged. So I want to talk to about a couple of things that can help a change initiative move forward. I know that, life cycle engineering, we have put all of our consulting and intellectual property in the LC Smarter platform. It's an online system of maintenance, reliability, asset management, best practices, and education, as well as change management, support, and measurement all in one place. We did that so that we could help our customers and also our consultants lead a transformational change. But I'd like for you, if you could, to broaden that, outside of the online system and what all that has to offer. But maybe what an example of what a smart culture transformation um, you know, looks like and feels like to a reliability leader. And maybe some tools or tools in the toolbox that reliability leader could have in their back pocket.
Yeah. So first, I mean, I do have to comment on Smarter because I was a client with as of LCEs several
Hmm.
times in the past, and had some of the earlier versions of Smarter. That repository of knowledge in the system itself is a huge enabler um, to a reliability culture and a great asset to the leader to be able to point an organization to a self-help um, system.
Right.
And no, so all of this in this conversation kind of goes hand in hand. If the workforce is not engaged and does
Mm.
not understand or is not educated in reliability, they're not going to pick up the tool. So, kind of an entry ticket to make sure that you're optimizing and getting all you can out of a continuous improvement engaged culture is you have to do both sides, the soft side, hard side, and systems.
Hmm.
And that's where Smarter becomes an essential tool, because you don't want leadership or formal education to be the only avenue for growth.
Ah.
Smarter is a growth enabler for every level of an organization that wants to contribute to improving the reliability of the assets and the operation. So you want to see how many times do my employees go into the system? What are they accessing? Are they doing self-learning? Are they looking for RACEs? Are they looking up process flows? And as a reliability leader, and I had this in my experience, I would monitor and let employees know, be transparent. We monitor the use of this system, and we're going to use that to try to help to guide what we need more of or what we need less of. So if I see that a scheduler planner or a reliability engineer is not logging into Smartr or is not using certain elements of it, I can go talk to that employee and say, let's talk about that. Why do you think that schedule compliance is not getting looked at by anybody in this organization, or
Mm.
why don't we look at PM audits or in that process flow of how to verify that our preventive actions are actually being utilized and effective. So I think that's one tool. As a reliability leader, education and engagement are two key components of
Mm-hmm.
the team,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that if you're managing an asset intensive operation, you need everybody that's part of that operation to be on the lookout for potential failures,
Mm-hmm.
understanding risk mitigation, understanding how to identify risks, and then also knowing what to do about it, how to escalate that. And if and as the leader, you see that out of a team of 10 people that are running in a certain operation, 8 of them are bringing forth, hey, I think we can do this, we can monitor that, we should be able to do this more efficiently, but 2 are not engaged. It then becomes something that the leader can leverage the peer relationships to say, we need everybody's ideas.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that the 2 are holding back. Let's dig into that together.
Right, right. Where's the disconnect, right? Where is that well, talk about failures. Where's the breakdown?
Yeah.
Where's the breakdown in my and the communication or with my people assets? Well, I just have to say, I just want to thank you so much, Wade, for everything that you and I have discussed today. I mean, we went all over the map, covered a lot of ground. We talked about one of my favorite sound bites from this episode will be culture doesn't live in the walls, it lives in people. And that's just so strong. And then, the importance of planning and using a structured change management process that includes identifying the risks of the change, the what's in it for me, the most important radio station on the planet, right? WIIFM. Um, looking into pain points that are in your current state of operations and trying to turn those into benefits for the individual. So trying to turn those into the what's in it for me. Another thing that I've taken away from our discussion is that this is a long game. An automation or any other sort of transformational change for your operations could take 1, 3, 5 years. And that the planning, not only for the technological side of the change, but for the people side of the change, and the changes that your workforce is going to need in terms of education, and help supporting their engagement needs to be forefront and thought of and considered ahead of time, all the way through those 5 years as much as you can. That you got to measure everything, up, down, sideways, that you've
Everything.
got to, and that you can measure the levels of engagement. You can measure the levels of trust that your organization has. So these things that are typically considered qualitative, not quantitative, can still have measures put in place so that you can gauge where you are in terms of how successful you'll be in the transformation. Again, that I loved also that you talked about ideas. Everyone, that ideas for employee is a huge KPI, and that everyone can be involved in the continuous improvement effort to set a goal for employees in that manner too. I mean, again, so glad you joined LCE, Life Cycle Engineering,
Yes.
Wade Watson this year. And we actually also, that Wade is a huge part of, something that life cycle engineering has, that not many others in the industry can say, is that we have a dedicated model for change management that's specifically for the industrial environment. And Wade is one of those people that are building on the model and making that model even more specific to our industrial environments. So if you'd like to know more about that topic, I do encourage our listeners to reach out, and reach out. Wade, you are on LinkedIn. Yes.
I am.
There you go.
Yes.
So if you want to find him and connect with Wade Watson, find him on LinkedIn. He's there. We'll also put some contact information in the episode notes. Wade, is there a last parting thought that you'd like to leave with our listeners today,
There
who are
is.
about to engage or thinking about or are undergoing a current transformation?
Yeah. As you were talking about metrics, it reminded me that, employees pay attention to what leadership looks at closely. And if you set up a metric that you're trying to drive a behavior that's going to impact a result ultimately.
Right.
Um, but employees thrive on the, I would say, the attention and approval from leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So they watch closely what they're paying attention to. As a leader driving a reliability transformation, in my experience, it's important not to pay too much attention or give too much accolades to the breakdown heroes.
Right.
It's kind of a trap. And this goes to a broader discussion about continuous improvement, that if there are reactive things that happen and things that go wrong in an organization, if the first thing the leader does is drop the strategic planning and jump in, then the employees all see that that's important to the leader, and
Right.
I want to be the best breakdown hero. If the leader pays more attention to somebody that prevents a problem or does something proactive or does something, submits an idea for growth that's implemented, and that draws the attention of the leader, but the negative, the I say the negative or the reactive thing that happened does not draw the attention, people will be more drawn to do the positive and the proactive thing than the negative. And that is I would say, a culture changer for leadership. Pay attention to the things that you want more of, pay less attention to the things that you don't want more of. Your attention is valuable.
I think that is an excellent parting thought. Did you hear that, listeners? Your attention is valuable and can be a cultural game changer. So I challenge all of you listeners out there to heed that phrase, because it speaks volumes. So as I said before, if you'd like to explore more about this topic, head to lc.com. We're going to put some resources in our session notes. And I encourage our listeners too to contact us to see why our consulting is different and leads or makes a lasting change in your operational performance. So Wade, thank you again so much for joining us. And listeners, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time on Get Smarter. So until next time, listeners, let's stay smarter, people.